Hello, good people of the internet. In my video discussing what I wanted to achieve with this channel in the coming months and what improvements were necessary, I highlighted one area I was seriously lacking in: lighting. The truth is that I actually had already received my new light as I was recording that video, and no, it's not one of the new budget lights from Aputure, although I do wish I would have waited just a bit longer for them. On the other hand, the light I now own was less than half the price of the 100D, and it is also much smaller. It's the GODOX LEDP260C. Today I'm going to tell you what I like and don't like about this LED panel. While I'm at it, I'm going to recommend whether you should consider one or not. You won't be seeing me handling the panel itself all too much in this video, as I'm actually using it right now and have done so for the majority of this year's videos. And before I get into the actual review, I do want to address this panel's name. The reason for that is because I've seen people complain about it, but to me it makes perfect sense. LEDP260C. LED because it has LEDs, or light emitting diodes. There's a surprise. P because it's a panel. 260 because it has 256 LEDs and they've rounded the number up. C because it's bi-color. It's that simple. For me, the name makes much more sense than, say, Aputure Amaran AL-MX or AL-F7. The LEDP260C has a total of 128 3300K LEDs and 128 5600K LEDs, and that is where my first complaint starts. A light such as the Aputure AL-F7, which I was previously using, has both 3200K and 95K LEDs. Were you to set it to daylight, the maximum brightness is much higher than at either end of the scale, because both sets of LEDs are being used at almost full brightness, and the combination results in a temperature of 5600K. But on the LEDP260C, only half of the available LEDs are being used when set to daylight. It still is around 70% brighter than my F7, but that number could have been higher were it to use a combination of warm and cool LEDs. Still, at 2200 lux when set to 5600K, it is plenty bright enough for my small space and should do for pretty much any amateur YouTube production such as mine. On a more positive note, you don't need any diffusion layers or light domes when using this light. Those would further diminish the brightness. The diffusion layer is actually part of the panel and it's fantastic. You won't be able to make out a single LED. I think the way GODOX has done this is by building this thing just like an LCD panel, where the LEDs are located around the panel and manage to evenly light a display. At peak brightness, the panel is rated at 30 watts and you can either use the included wall adapter or use two Sony NP-F batteries. And you have to use two. You can't use just a single battery. I read someone somewhere complaining that the LEDP260C would only ever drain one battery, but only worked when two batteries were attached. That is most certainly not the case. The panel will evenly drain both batteries at the same time. The panel needs around 13 volts and one battery only provides 7.2, so it would be impossible for a single battery to power the whole thing. The battery mount on the back is another place where GODOX managed to save a few pennies. The batteries don't snap or click into place. You just have to mush them in there and hope you've done everything correctly. And yes, this has led me to drop a battery. Luckily, it survived. I've not done any tests on the battery life, but I did run through a few calculations. One NP-F 750 battery, which I am using, has a capacity of around 31 watt hours, so two will provide you with about 62. If you divide that by the 30 watts the panel needs, we're left with about 2 hours of runtime on a single charge. Two NP-F 970 batteries should get you around 3 hours, and NP-F 550s less than an hour. I'd definitely recommend at least a pair of 570s. By the way, if you're wondering how I charge my NP-F batteries, I found this brilliant little charger that has both a micro USB and, more importantly, a USB-C input. With USB-C it can charge at up to 18 watts and that's pretty fantastic. Unfortunately, it can't charge other devices through the USB-C port, which would have been nice if you ever needed a makeshift power bank, but hey, at least it has USB-C and uses power delivery properly. The bad news is that I don't think you can get anything from Patona, who makes this charger, stateside, but now at least you know that USB-C chargers for NPF batteries do exist. I've already mentioned that this light is exceptionally cheap. You'll find it for around $90, which is less than the Aputure AL-F7, but you definitely do get what you pay for. The whole body and panel itself is made from plastic. That's an issue if you want to take this light anywhere with you. My recommendation is to just not do it. If you need a portable light, this one is not for you. Especially the plastic on the panel is extremely soft, and I once carried it in my bag and already there are scuff marks and scratches on it. The plastic construction has another downside in that it expands when the LEDs start heating up. While expanding, you will hear almost a cracking sound. The first time it happened to me, I thought it must be dying. Well, as it appears, that is just something the LEDP260C does. It's not something that will ruin a recording, but you should definitely be aware of it. You let me know in the comments if you heard anything in this video. Other than that, the LEDP260C is completely silent. There are no fans needed as the vents on each side seem to suffice, and there's no electronic buzzing or whining to be heard. Using plastic, of course, isn't all bad, and the big advantage is that this panel is not only extremely thin but weighs less than a kilogram. And no, I'm not going to tell you how much that is in pounds or ounces because metric is the way. So it is light, but then again you can't actually take it anywhere, so there's no real point in it being light. But I don't think that GODOX purposefully built it to be as light as possible. It's just what happens when you use plastic for the chassis. Before I go on, I don't want you to think that I'm hating on this light. It might sound like I only have complaints, and that's because objectively it just isn't the best light. And I'm attempting to be as objective as possible, but everything I've been saying is offset by the fact that it is cheap. Very cheap. And for my setup, I don't need much more. Also consider that you don't need any extras to diffuse or focus the light. The panel is really the only thing you need to buy. It even comes with a power supply. Sure, the LEDP260C is not what I would go for if money were no object, but the price is what makes this light so attractive, and it works perfectly enough as long as you are aware of its limitations. If you're sitting at a desk and talking about stuff, you don't really need much more. The light quality isn't the best, but at a CRI of 95 plus, it's more than decent. With that said, let's move on to how the panel mounts onto a light stand. You do thankfully get a little handle to attach it to just about any light stand, but it won't exactly fill you with confidence. The mounting parts are metal, but it does wobble and move all over the place. The most confusing thing about this light is that there are threads for a tripod mount on each corner on the back side. I've not found anyone with an explanation of what to do with them. Yeah, you can get L brackets that will attach to it, but you wouldn't want to mount it on just one corner, would you? Seriously, GODOX, what's the point of them? It would have been far more useful to have them on the outside edges, allowing you to skip the handle and attach it in a more secure way. And of course, horizontal or vertical. One area where they didn't skimp on is the remote. You can control everything from the back side of the panel, but it also comes with a handy little IR remote. You can configure each panel to be in one of 6 groups across 16 channels. That means that you can actually control multiple lights with just a single remote. GODOX obviously envisions you to have multiple panels, but I only have the one, so I can't actually test any of that. Still, it's definitely a nice to have. That's pretty much all there is to say on the LEDP260C. For me, it's fine. If your work is in any way similar to mine, talking while sitting somewhere, it will be fine for you too. Just don't expect too much from such a cheap light. You can't hot swap the batteries, it gets scratched easily, and it doesn't solidly attach to a light stand. If that's fine with you, go for it. You won't find anything cheaper. I don't think this panel is aimed exclusively at small-time YouTubers. I can definitely see it being used by streamers due to the slim design. But you will have to figure out a way to mount it on a wall, as the back isn't completely flat and the barrel adapter is also located there and will stick out a bit. You should definitely consider the Aputure Amaran 100D as an alternative though. It does cost about double as much, but it has 3 times the power. It also has a cob light, so you won't get any weird shadows or lines on your person. The Bowens mount allows you to attach a huge assortment of diffusers, but you will also have to place it further away from yourself. I have this panel right here, right now, so if you do have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask anything in the comments below. But with that said, it has been enough waffling on from me for one day. If you did like this video or find it useful in any way, please do hit that like button to show your appreciation. If you didn't enjoy it, hit the dislike button twice to make it extra impactful. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.